Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Entrepreneurs International Network. We are so excited to have you here today. My name is Becky Askerlin, and I am the organizer here for Entrepreneurs International Network. And I'm very excited for our speaker today. Each week, we bring speakers that we know and collaborate with to bring some kind of valuable message or training to entrepreneurs here in this space. I appreciate all of you taking the time to show up here today and to listen to our amazing expert. Today, we have Susan Crossman. Susan Crossman is an author coach and editor who helps mission-focused coaches, consultants, and innovators write and publish compelling nonfiction books that make a difference in their business and in their world. We are so grateful to have Susan here today. I'm excited to bring her on. Just give me a quick second. There went my daughter.
There we
Hi,
are.
Susan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, nice to be here, Becky.
I'm going to go ahead and let you just take over so you can have as much time to be able to teach everybody. So let me remove myself.
Awesome.
There you go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much and welcome everybody. I'm very delighted to be here with the EIN and extremely excited to be talking about my favorite topic, which is book writing. Um, I imagine that there are a few people in this audience who have at least thought about writing a book, because we know that 80% of the population has thought about writing a book. There is a pretty big attrition rate in the book writing world. From any group of, say, 10,000 people, 80% of those, or 8,000, will have thought about writing a book. And then by the time we look at how many people actually start writing a book, how many finish the manuscript, and how many people will go on to get a completed manuscript published, the number of people who cross that finish line is 8. So 8 out of 8,000 people who have thought about writing a book will actually carry that project through to completion. So there's a pretty big attrition rate, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And I very nearly was one of those. But what I would hope to do during this talk is to give you a greater sense of urgency around writing your book. A lot of people figure they can get at that project any old time. And of course, now with AI, we can write a book in 45 minutes if we want to. And so there's no urgency around getting going on it. But I happen to think there is a fair bit of urgency. And I'd love to change the conversation around that to emphasize how writing a really powerful book takes time, dedication, energy, heart, love, and a whole lot of enthusiasm, and of course, your very, very best efforts. And when we push that project off into the future, we're pushing off the benefits that that book can generate in the world as well. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is really, why would you want to move forward a little faster and a little bit more intentionally with the writing of the book? I mean, we were talking, Becky asked when we first were coming into the room if people could put in the chat box where you are with writing a book. And I'm very happy to see a couple of people did. If you haven't done that, please do. Let's see where everybody is with this whole idea of writing a book. I'm always curious because some people kind of want to. And by the way, if you're not ready to admit that you're writing a book now, that's okay too. Because when I started writing my first book, it took me a very, very, very long time to even own up to the fact that I was interested in writing a book, because it was just such a big project. And who was I to write a book? There was a lot of imposter syndrome for me when I was writing a good book, or when I was writing my first book. And, that's kind of interesting too, because I was the kind of person one would have expected to write a book. I had a career as a professional writer, and right off the bat, right out of university, I got jobs writing. I worked in daily news, and I actually ended up working for I'm Canadian. I worked for Canada's National News Wire Service as an editor there. I worked in the country's largest provincial ministry, which was the Ontario Ministry of Health, still is actually, doing communications work there, writing speeches and press releases and dealing with the press, and writing briefing notes. And so writing was a wonderful way to make a living. I ended up after that with a marketing agency. I was a marketing copywriter for a number of years as well. And then finally ended up kind of the formal part of my career working as the editor of an international food safety magazine, actually the world's largest online international food safety magazine. So I had done a mountain of writing. I was very comfortable with writing. And then I had a bigger dream, though, you see, and that was I wanted to write a book. And somehow, when it came time to own up to the fact that I was writing a book, I became almost crippled with imposter syndrome because that seemed like something only important people did, or only really, really famous people did, or only people with a huge community behind them, that was something that I couldn't do because I wasn't one of those people in that select group that does those things. And so as a result, it took 13 years for me to write that first book, which was a novel. I wasn't looking for authority, and I wasn't looking to be a leader. And I just wanted to write a book. That was just the fulfillment of a dream for me. And then one day, my husband came up to me, and I was still plugging away on this book. And he said, you know, you've wanted to write a book for a long time and you've been working on it. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what really is stopping you? And that's a really good question that I invite everybody here to ask yourself is what is stopping you? Because usually it's something inside us that we haven't owned up to yet that is getting in our way subconsciously quite often, or even consciously, that's keeping us from actually fulfilling on that beautiful dream of writing a book. And in my case, very sadly, my husband passed away eventually. After 11 years of working on my book, he passed away. And that really, aside from many traumatic aspects to that experience, it also taught me that life is short. And if I wanted to find out if I could write a book, well, I actually better do it. And 2 years later, my first book came out. It was a book, a novel. And then since then, I've written 4 more fiction and nonfiction books. I'm working on 2 more right now. So I am working as a working author, as well as working as an author coach. And I work also as an editor, helping people write those books that make such a difference in their world. And a lot of things change when you become an author. And one of the things that's changed for me is my scope in the world. Just a couple of months ago, I was very privileged to win an international award for excellence in literature in London, England, presented by an organization called the Women Changing the World. And the Women Changing the World is, they have an awards program that presents awards to women who are trailblazers and women who are very, very interested in making a difference in the world themselves. So you never know where this book writing world will take you. I can pretty much guarantee that if I hadn't written that first book, I wouldn't have ended up with that award. And I find that with a lot of my clients as well, is that book, that first book particularly, is a portal to a whole other set of opportunities that we cannot even imagine yet. So now my mission is to help people write and share the most profound and powerful books they're capable of writing. And what we're doing in my community is taking aim at world peace and harmony, because I think a really well-written book can help people find their way to lives of fulfillment and peace. And of course, if we're not doing that, why wouldn't we want to do that? And that's something that I know is possible. We're going to talk today about the 5 areas of urgency around writing a book. And those 5 areas for me are the fact that your audience is waiting, your personal transformation is waiting. As I mentioned, there are things you cannot even imagine yet that are possible for you through the portal of the book writing world. Your business is waiting. A lot of people here, I'm assuming, are entrepreneurs as well. And your future is waiting. Aside from the personal transformation, there's a future out there that is leading you into, as I say, new opportunities, new businesses, and new people who are going to act on your world in wonderful ways as well. And also, the funny thing is, there will never be a perfect time to write a book. And that's something that I know too through personal experience, that of course, as I mentioned, my husband passed away, and I was the widowed mom of 2 very young children when he died. He had cancer. And so I had to raise my kids. And I also have had a physically disabled mom in my life. She's an elderly lady, passed away 2 years ago now. But through probably about 15 years of my life, I was raising my kids. I started and ran a business. And I was also looking after my mom. And I've written 5 books during that time. Well, 4 books during that time too. So none of that was a good time to write a book, but I was able to organize myself, prioritize, goal set, and be open to the whispers of the divine as well in order to accomplish these big, big dreams that I had around book writing. So just kind of with that as kind of a preamble, it seems to me that if you've heard that siren call to write a book, there is a really good probability that that's part of your destiny as well. That I believe that we are continuously facilitated by a loving universe, and that everything that happens to us creates of us the perfect funnel through which your book is meant to flow. And I can't write your book, and your next door neighbor can't write your book, your family members can't write your book. Only you can write that book, because you have been tailor-made to do that. And that if you do believe, as I do, that there's this thing called destiny out there in our lives, and we have free will all the way through it. But if there is this kind of golden opportunity just sitting and waiting for you, then understand that you are the only one who can write that book, and it's perfect. That you can write a really, really good book as well. There are lots of people who kind of struggle with things that we do, and you've probably solved problems that nobody else has solved, or that very few people have solved. So that's kind of another part of the impetus for you to be writing that book is that you are here to serve people. I think we're all here to serve people in some way, and miracles happen through other people and other conversations. So if we can look for a minute at reason number one, which is that your audience is waiting, then we can understand maybe that because you are this funnel for that book, and no one else can write that book, there are people here that you are able to serve through the books that you're here to write. That if you think about all the books that you've read, I would love it if you put in the chat box some of the books that have changed your life. What are the books that you've read that you feel have really made a huge difference in your life? I have a list as long as my arm. I can think of any one of the Wayne Dyer books that I've read. I'm a big Greg Braden reader. Dr. Sue Morter, her Energy Codes book was a huge one for me, as well as other ones like Little Women. That was a big one for me. I was a big Little Women reader. I read all the Nancy Drew books when I was little. They were big books for me as well. Atomic Habits, that's another great one. The Four Agreements. Thank you, Imani. Yeah, so those are all books that have made a difference in people's lives. Just imagine if those authors hadn't written the books. And typically, the people who've written those books, they often were not famous people, famous authors before they wrote the book. There was a time before the book and before the kind of the celebrity that goes along with that quite often. There was a time when they weren't famous people. They were just somebody who wanted to write a book just like you. And so if they hadn't written that book, those books wouldn't have had the opportunity to make such a difference in our lives. And you're one of those people too. That because you have been facilitated to be the only person through which that book can flow, then in not writing the book, you're missing out on an opportunity to serve the people that you're here to serve through the wisdom that you've spent your entire life acquiring. So there's something pretty magical about that. And if we can look at our books as acts of service rather than, as I did with that first book, particularly as a vanity project. I was really in my ego with that first book because I thought it was all about me. Well, actually, it's all about your reader. And yes, it is a wonderful accomplishment to write a book and have it published and get the opportunities that come along with all that follows that. But there's something really pivotal about you having the information available to share with other people. And I think I saw in the comment box, where did it go? Letters to Simona from Turbo Labs, Simona's journey as an immigrant single dad in Canada. Wow. Can you just imagine how big a difference that book can make? For example, just as one example of all the books that are potentially being written here, what a wonderful act of service that book will be for other immigrant dads who are single dads in Canada, because you've solved a lot of problems through your own experience. And the book gives you an opportunity to show the resilience that you've had and how things have kind of come together for you. Even and I have no doubt that has been a very, very demanding experience. I really honor you for that, Turbo Labs, for that experience. Now let's go the next step and put that book into service for the people that you are potentially able to serve with that book. There's so much waiting. I'll share a little story about one of my clients, Tina Roisefelt. Tina had a very difficult upbringing. She's a status Aboriginal individual here in Canada. As I said, I'm Canadian as well. And she came from a very difficult family background. In fact, her grandmother had been in the residential school system here in Canada. And one of the kind of fallouts that I hadn't realized of that system was that the children who were put in those schools, they never learned how to be parents. They didn't get that kind of at your parents' knee training in how to parent your own children and how to learn by example. That wasn't part of the curriculum whatsoever. And so Tina's mom had a pretty disadvantaged upbringing and ended up, I think she was 16 years old when Tina was born. Her father also similarly had been from a background, the same kind of background, and he was very young, and they both had addiction issues. So Tina was raised in a family with a lot of addiction issues. She was sexually abused as a child, and the writing was pretty much on the wall that Tina, at least she feels, that she was probably could not have avoided ending up with a lot of addiction issues herself. But for whatever reason, after some years of drug and alcohol abuse, Tina found a way to crawl out of that awful, awful dark cave of addictions and all the things that go along with it. And she created for herself a recovery recipe. And it's a series of behaviors and actions that she took in order to stay sober, to find a way to sobriety and stay sober and build a really incredible life on the other side of that. And she decided that she would write a book about that because she felt very strongly that there were people she could serve with that information. And now Tina was a yoga instructor as well. She was an emergency room nurse and working very, very long hours as an emergency room nurse and teaching yoga with the dream of creating a yoga studio where she could help other people who were in recovery, particularly find and claim a life of sobriety and a life with a lot more fulfillment and happiness in it than she had been previously experiencing. So that was the kind of the purpose of the book then, was to support her business that she was creating and also to serve other people. Well, I caught up with Tina a year or so ago, and life didn't turn out the way she thought it was going to turn out, because with the book and the visibility that came with the book, doors opened that she hadn't even expected to open. And she's currently now working at a holistic recovery center for addictions in Costa Rica. Now, that's not what she was hoping to do with the book, but it's turned out to be such a perfect solution. She doesn't have to be part of the Canadian winter anymore, and she gets to do what she loves to do, which is be in a holistic environment, helping other people with the service that she's here to serve. So, that's kind of just one story of amazing things that are possible as acts of service through the book, but also positioned her as a leader in all of that. So one action step I can recommend that you might want to take if you're on this book journey is to create a description of your ideal reader. Who is that person that you're here to serve with your book, and potentially quite often your life and your business and all those things that you're doing? Who is your ideal reader? And the more clear we can be on who our ideal reader is, the better we are able to find those people with our marketing and encourage them to read the book and use that book as an act of service as well. The second piece of urgency that I think is that your personal transformation is also waiting. And in the process of writing our books, especially that first one, we really grow and we evolve and we find aspects of ourselves that we didn't even know were tucked away deep down inside us. We get these aha moments as we're processing and integrating our lives and determining, well, what part of my story am I actually going to put on the page? What am I going to share? You don't have to share everything. In fact, I have quite a few clients who've had pretty awful experiences in their background, similar to Tina, but who are not going to share all of that in the book. That's too private and it's not information that they want to share. But there are aspects of that story that will serve, but whether or not they put it in the book, they at least have the opportunity to examine it through the lens of creating a story that they can share with other people. And that personal transformation is very, very deep and can be extremely powerful in terms of creating our lives. Yeah, Imani, would you like to say something? Oh, you're muted. Oh, oh, I can't hear you, Imani. I
All right,
can't
now
hear
I'm
you.
on mute. At first it
Oh,
was blocked.
oh, there we go. Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to share something along the lines of that. Like you said, that was one challenge I faced with one of my books where I didn't want to share, like you said, some personal information that, not that I guess I was ashamed of it because I didn't want to bring in other people because it involved personal people. I didn't want, people don't want lawsuits, whatever. And the way that I got around that block is I decided to just make it make it a fiction, make it a fiction story, but I knew, and that it was based on real events, but I was still able to go ahead and remove that block and just go ahead and write my story, tell my story, know that I can help somebody, but at the same time, avoid that issue, the legality issues of putting people's names and people feeling, oh, you're talking about me. And that tie, remove that block. And I was able to put it in. It helped me through my healing, like you said. It was a part of my healing. It was something that I went through in my life that I knew could help others if they heard my testimony. And it helped me with my healing. I needed it. I needed to let it out, but I did it through a fiction channel. But I knew, that it was based on true story. Just so that kind of piggyback on what you just said.
I love that you contributed that. Thank you very much. And you raise a really important issue, which is the legality issue. We in this self-publishing world that we're in, there's no barrier to writing anything that you want to write. However, there are laws that ideally will protect people from things that you might want to say. There's privacy laws particularly, and also the kind of libel and slander that you can't just run around saying things about people that aren't true. Turbo Labs, love to hear what you have to say too. Do you have another name? Can we call you something else, or is that the name you prefer to be called?
Hey,
Hey.
I'm Alexander Mole. That's my
Oh,
name.
you're Alexander. Gotcha.
Yeah, I just basically signed into my company account. Yeah, I actually have the book right now with me. It's a physical book. I've been writing
Oh,
it since 2019. When I had very personal feelings with my relationship. I knew deep down inside that the partner that I had my child with, she's gonna be 8 this year in August. And I knew deep down inside that this wasn't right for me. And I felt like my kid was too young. She was too small for me to, and it's not fair for children to be loaded with this very intense information, or I think kids need to be kids. My mom raised me where she allowed me to be a child and allowed me to be safe and not to be convoluted with adult things. And that's pretty much what inspired me to start writing this book. And ironically, I actually started writing it while her mom and I were still together. Um, it's been difficult because I'm an industrial designer by trade. And I came to Canada and I quickly realized that it doesn't matter what degree you have, whether you're a doctor, an engineer, once you're not from Canada, it's very difficult to matriculate into the system. I've always been a really good writer. I've always had a good grip on vocabulary and grammar and stuff like that and literature. And I was really inspired to start writing this book because I believe when my daughter becomes of age, maybe she might read it. You know what I mean? But just similar to Imani, I also had issues of privacy, and I was fully aware of the legal ramifications that might occur with that. And while I'm still writing it, you know, because I'm still going through stuff. I'm still going through tons of different things like my relationship anarchy and trying to find myself and these are and being an immigrant, you know what I mean? Just being different, being in Canada. And I feel it's really important, you know, as you said, the audience is we're really doing this for. Um, but at the same time, you know, I was actually maybe about a month ago, I was thinking, would it be feasible or is an option of redacting, you know, like maybe like how the FBI redacts names and uses like a black line over the book or maybe just changing the name, you know, because
Yeah.
I do respect the fact that, you know, like what Imani said, changing it to be fictional, but I also want to honor my story and honor, you know, what the truth of how I feel and my feelings and emotions, and also the struggle that I'm going through. And I feel like it's not an injustice, but I feel like there must be some alternative workaround to that. And redaction came up like in my sphere of thought a month ago, and I was just considering maybe that might be an option, just blanking out their name. So when, you know, their name or a particular incident that somebody else might be able to connect it to avoid defamation, you know, there's a huge blank, like FBI documents, you know what I mean? You go into JFK's murder or, you know, Malcolm X or whatever, and it's heavily redacted. So
Yeah, that's not typically done. Normally, what people would do is change the names and change some of the personal characteristics. So the
right.
physical description, the location. It's tough when it's a partner that you had a child with because there are people in your community who will know who the mother is, right? Like
Yes.
she is identifiable, which is the concern around privacy, is that people will be able to find out who she is and potentially embarrass her, or what, you know, it could
Right.
be embarrassing for her, which is what she might take issue with and then launch a legal suit. Probably a good idea to get legal advice on that one is where I would
Okay.
probably go. But most people get around that by changing the names, changing the circumstances, changing the location, like changing as many details as you possibly can so that person is not identifiable. And when it's, for example, in a situation like sexual abuse, when an adult has been sexually abused and maybe it was their brother, then and charges were never laid, and so we can't prove that they actually did that. So that's the, you know, if it's true, you can say it, but if it's not true, then or it hasn't been proven to be true, then you're on a little thinner ice. And so what
Right.
people will typically do is, instead of it being the brother, it was an uncle, or it was a friend of the family, or it was somebody else who's a little bit further distant away. So they can't tell who that was. However, the fact that it happened, I mean, the reality is, yes, of course it happened. But you're still telling the story with a lot of potency, but you're just not making it clear who the perpetrator was for something like that. But I
Understood.
really honor you, Alexander. That is a tough road to hoe. And I really honor you for putting your daughter first, to really caring about her experience and making sure that she's kind of inoculated, you know,
Yeah,
protected
I mean,
from.
growing up, you know, I saw a lot of unhealthy habits and stuff from my
Yeah,
dad, and my dad, you know, is from a generation that is disengaged. You know, men who are above 50 and whatnot, they don't have a very emotionally intelligent, engaging grip with their kids. Nowadays, 2025, you're seeing dads with kids strapped to their chest. You know, you're seeing dads playing in the park and stuff with their children. Times are changing. We
they
are a lot more engaged parents of my generation. And I feel like, you know, we have responsibilities and we have duties to be able to do that. And, you know, the relationship I have with her mother is pretty amicable. You know, I've done a lot of work in order to stabilize a solid foundation because I think that her well-being is important. I don't want anybody to make it look like, you know, she's a perpetrator or anything like that. So
yeah.
I definitely will take legal advice and, you know, try to figure some ways around that. But yeah.
And also say nice things about her.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Find some nice things you can say.
when I started writing, there was a lot of anger and discomfort and confusion. And where I'm at now, I do say, a lot of great things. She is a great mom. It could have been a lot worse. So I definitely think, there is a level of evolution in the book, which, you can see as an author, from 2019 to 2025, there is a growth. And that's what I want to be able to portray in the book.
How exciting. And I just think of the opportunity for your readers too. The fact that you're able to write about that and show the readers this evolution also makes it possible for them who may be stuck in the anger, like we've all had things we've been really upset about, justifiably quite often. And we don't want to stay there. But the fact that you're kind of carrying the flag for being able to heal that, to come through it and find a better way of being with yourself and with other people in the world. I mean, to be able to show that to readers is huge. It shows that it's possible.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing that, Alexander. I just so appreciate that. So the other piece of that then, like kind of from an action step perspective, because I like to take action, I like to put action to things, is put a date in your calendar when you want to be published. And the personal transformation isn't stuck to a date. It doesn't mean that you stop. The transformation of a book that's available through a book doesn't stop just because you put a date in your calendar. But having that out there notionally for you is kind of like something that will magnetize you to that conclusion, so that you are making it real as every day goes by. It's out there in the calendar. It's going to bother you that it's there unless you do take action and you do keep working on that book. A lot of people journal, and a journal isn't a book. Like, you can't just take your journal and just say, okay, here's my book, I'm going to publish that as well. You can do that. It's not a very interesting book usually for most of your readers. Like I kind of liken it. I have two daughters, and when both of them were about 8 years old, to your point, Alexander, when they were about 8 years old, I don't know if your daughter's like this, but the scariest thing for me was when one of them said, "Oh, mommy, I had a dream last night." And that dream would go on and on and on. And then this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, and then that. And like half an hour later, I'd still be hearing about this weird dream. I couldn't follow it. And that's kind of like what reading your journal is like for other people. It's like, it's so much detail that they can't really track with. So, just to the point of, now your journal's probably not the same as a book, but that's a lot of transformation involved in journaling as well. It's kind of the nugget of that we also experience in writing a book. So another urgency for me around book writing is the fact that your business is waiting. And I'm assuming that most of you are entrepreneurs here. If you are an author, you are an entrepreneur. A book is a business in a box almost. It can support an existing business beautifully. The opportunities for growing your business through your book are huge. But also the book itself is a little business, because there are costs involved in publication. Without getting too detailed, there are 4 different kinds of publishing now. We have four different models plus audiobooks, but 4 main models of publishing. There are different costs involved to each one. And there is also the fact that you do need to get that book edited. Even if you're a good writer, editing is a specific skill set around books, particularly, and whatever the publication is. But there are conventions around book writing that are embedded into an editor's job. And so the editing is a very high level professional skill that gets applied to your book. And there are costs involved in hiring an editor. If you are self-publishing, you'll probably want to hire someone to format the book, or do it yourself. But I would never do that, because I just don't think I have a skill set around that. It would look like a mishmash if I ever did my own book formatting wise. You'll probably want to hire someone to do your book cover. And you want a professional book cover, because in my experience, the book covers that are done by somebody's cousin who's a good artist, pretty good with a computer, there's again a specific skill set around book cover design. So you want somebody who knows what they're doing. So you know there's a cost there. So all the way along the line, there are costs involved. So that implies a business. So you want to figure out what's the return on the investment for this book, and that's when we get into a business model around revenue generation using the book, not necessarily book sales. I'm a traditionally published author. I get $2 for every book that sells. I'm not going to retire on that. However, I've built my business leveraging my book writing capabilities and the successes that I've had. And that's what is bringing in the revenue for me now. And so everybody has a slightly different revenue model, but there is a business related to it. Now, if you do already have a business, if you're an entrepreneur with a business, then the leveraging you can do with a book is really pretty massive. There's a visibility piece around becoming an author that can really make a huge difference to the visibility of your business, to your brand, to your ability to attract clients into your business and prove your credibility. I was at the Soulful Leadership Retreat. Some of you may have heard of the Soulful Leadership Retreat, and that took place in Orlando, Florida in February. And I was there, and one of the speakers that was stood up, he's an 8-figure business person. And he has done, as you might imagine, a ton of research around where their clients are coming from, what marketing initiatives are paying off, who their target audience is, and what the lifetime value of their clients are. And what he's discovered is the lifetime value of someone who came into their business because of the book is significantly higher than the lifetime value of clients who have come to the business from other avenues. And he really feels that it's the credibility that the book has given him and his business, the thought leadership that goes along with that, the fact that it brands the business really nicely. But he says that if you really want to grow your business, you want to make sure you have a very well-written book supporting you and your business, you as the CEO, but also the business as an entity that is worth people investing in. So that's a really, really important aspect, I think. Your business isn't able to benefit from the book until it's written and published. So the business is waiting for you to get your giddy up on and get that book written and out there where it can be doing the book or doing the good that it has in it to do. So one action step that you can really take is brainstorm a list of ways your book could support your business. It could be like speaking engagements is one of the biggest things with books. You can get speaking engagements if you're not an author, but I have to say it happens a lot faster and a lot more easily when you are the author of a good book. I've had speaking gigs fall into my lap because they asked one question: is she an author? The answer was yes. She got the gig. Like it's that easy. And from a business building perspective, being able to be visible publicly as a speaker is huge for your business. So that's just one. Courses is another really powerful way to build your business, offering courses and consulting and all those things. The book just makes it happen easier and faster. Another place of urgency, again, is the fact that your future is waiting. As I mentioned, with that first book that I was working on, my life really fell apart when my husband passed away. I had these 2 little kids and an older child who was from my first marriage, who was off at university when her stepdad died. And I have 2 stepkids, disabled mom, and I needed to go back to work. I had been home for 10 years because we had 5 kids coming and going. It was a blended family, and there were access arrangements and travel arrangements, and my husband's job was very unpredictable, so we moved a lot. And so I was the family circus ringmaster, really, is what I did for 10 years, and ended up having to go back to work. Well, the point at which my life turned to a disaster, perceptive disaster, because I have to say, in many ways, I was liberated into the life that I'm leading now. I could not imagine the life that I'm living now. I travel all the time. I just spent 2.5 weeks in England and France. I spent a month in Ireland last year. I have a portable business because I do what I do. I'm able to do it from anywhere. You can edit books on the Riviera as easily as you can in your office. Somehow that works. But we can also run our businesses from other locations as well. If you're not tied to a business where you have to be meeting people every day, you can be pretty portable today. And I am. I've had like 5 trips this year so far. And it's fulfilling for me, and I'm doing it by choice. This is how I want to live my life. If I hadn't written that first book and built my business and then written all those other books, and now I'm working on books 6 and 7, like this is now how my normal, this is how I've created my life. This is the future that I didn't know was waiting for me. I couldn't imagine living my life this way back before I had written the book. And I didn't know it was waiting for me, and I didn't know it was a possibility. I didn't know that you could spend a month in Ireland. Like, I didn't know that's something people did, but I do, and I can. And it's just because I've leaned into the opportunities that the book presents and kind of given away a lot of limiting beliefs at the same time around, what life needs to look like. And I say yes a lot, and I regret saying yes sometimes because it usually costs money. But what's on the other side of the yes are amazing experiences. I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of traveling. I present at events. This picture in the middle here, where I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's got stairs with red. That's the Livraria Lelo in Portugal. Porto, Portugal. And it's where J.K. Rowling worked before she wrote the Harry Potter series. And that bookstore is actually the model for Hogwarts. So I got to go visit that a couple of years ago as well. So many things are waiting for you. And I'm not saying that it's just because of writing a book, but the book facilitates and accelerates opportunities, or can. And like I say, it's not necessarily that that's going to happen, but the doors open. The doors are there. It's whether we have the courage and the determination to open those doors, because we've now got the book that can make so many more things happen. So one action step I'd like to recommend people take is that you just take a little bit of time and imagine what your future could look like once you're benefiting from the visibility that the book can generate. And just don't limit yourself. I call it blue sky time. I love a little blue sky time, and that's when I just sit and I write. And I usually have a little topic that I want to cover, but it's just take the brakes off and just imagine anything. Just don't limit yourself to what you think is possible. Just try and make it so big and so beautiful and so grand that you shock yourself a little bit. Try that and just see what happens as a result. And it might not come true, but imagination is the first step towards reality. And then finally, the last little piece of this, and I'm just about to finish up for all of this because I think I'm running out of time, is there is no perfect time to write a book. What I've discovered in my years as an author coach and an editor, and also as an author myself, is that there is no day when we get up out of bed and we look at our calendar and we go, wow, look at that. I have nothing planned for the next 2 weeks. I think I'll write a book. It doesn't happen. It is, we're busy people. We have families. We have work commitments. We have friends. We've got to look after our homes. We've got lots of things going on, and our calendars fill up almost without us. And so my invitation to you is to recognize that you're not just going to suddenly get 6 weeks when you can just do nothing but write a book. Most of us don't. You could. That is a possibility, because if you do a little blue sky time around it, you might be able to figure out that, that is a possibility. But for most of us, it's not normal to be landing, finding suddenly a month where we can just sit and work on a book. So we need to schedule it. And that's my action step here on this one, is to put the time into your calendar. Schedule the time into your calendar. And I work with a lot of highly visionary people who don't really like to be tied down to the restriction of a calendar and restriction of mapping out every single step of what they have to do. It doesn't feel comfortable to a lot of my clients. But what I've discovered is that when you book that time, that regular book writing time into your calendar, the writing genie knows when and where to find you, and you get those downloads. You sit there and you just kind of open yourself to the book and play around with writing a few things. And it doesn't take too long before the writing genie goes, okay, Alexander is always at his computer working on his book Tuesday afternoons from 3 to 5 p.m. Maybe earlier if you've got a daughter in school, maybe, you know, it's not, you got to go pick her up or be available earlier. But the writing genie figures out that that's when and where you're working on your book, and you get facilitated and the process accelerates because you are making sure that you're available to the book. So that's what I meant to share with you today, and I'd love to have questions. I would like to just quickly offer the free gift that I'm offering to everybody today, which is a free ticket to my upcoming 3-day event. I'm running a 3-day event called Write with Impact, June 26th to the 28th. And that event has come out of my experience as an author coach and as an editor. I've come to realize that a lot of people, first of all, are a little bit insecure about their writing skills. And so day one of that event is going to be all about polishing our writing skills. I've written a book about how to write more powerfully, and I've been writing for decades professionally and as an author and so on. So the day one of that is all about writing better. Day two is all about, well, what goes into a compelling book? How do you write a really good book? Because the writing is only one piece of it. There's book structure, there's storytelling, there's all kinds of things that go into writing a compelling book. So day two of that event, we are going to look at, okay, how do you write a really compelling book? What are the elements that go into a compelling book? And then day three is all about how do you manage that authoring career? What does it take to actually make money at this? Because that's kind of the piece that I think a lot of people miss, is turning that book into a revenue generating opportunity. It's not from book sales. Like some people it is. There is a way to do it so you're making a lot more money with book sales. It's not my $2 a copy that I get from a traditional publisher. That's not a great revenue model. There are better ways to do it. But I would love you to come and join me. We'll put a link. I think I've got the link here into the chat box. Come and register. For EIN people, it's free. Other people are paying $47, but I'd love you to join me, and let's have some fun with book writing. And where did Becky go? There she is. Becky, do we have time to take a few questions if there are more questions?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So what's coming up for everybody? Tell me where you are. What did anything resonate? Do you have questions? No, there's no code. That link I put in there should take you there for free. It should cancel out, Imani, any charges there. Let me know if it isn't. And the system is asking for $47. Really? Son of a gun, because mine says no charge. Try the code. Here, I'll put what I think is the code, early bird. Whoops, special, but it'll have to be all caps. Try that and let me know. And maybe because I put the code in. And otherwise I can try one more link here. Did that one work? Yes, yay. I love it when the technology works. It is not my strong suit. So what's coming up, everybody? Where are you with your book? Are you ready to roll, rock and roll? I love to read. I'd love to read your book. Oh, if I self-publish with Amazon, it's the only way I know. Can I sell that book somewhere else in other platforms? Jesus, there are rules on Amazon around that. And typically what they do is they will give you, Amazon will give you a higher percentage of the royalties, the percentage of the book sales, if you put your book exclusively on Amazon. If you make it available on other book selling platforms, and there are lots of them out there, then Amazon, you can still put it on Amazon, but they will charge you a kind of almost like a penalty fee for doing that. So it is possible for sure, but you've got to watch. Now, the other thing to watch with Amazon, I've had clients who, for example, did aid work in Africa or had been in Saudi Arabia, and Amazon doesn't distribute there. And so people had written their book, they put it up on Amazon, and they had a lot of people who wanted to buy the book, for example, in Africa. And Amazon, for whatever reason, had blacked out distribution there. And so people couldn't get the book there. So you've got to really check and do a little bit of research. And that's why I kind of like using assisted self-publishing rather than doing it yourself, because there are these little questions like that you might not think to ask, that a self-publishing company will be able to research for you and probably be able to steer you in the right direction before you even think of asking that question. So I think Alexander was next with his hand up. Oh, good. Thank you, Nilufa. Go ahead, Alexander. Were you going to ask another question?
Yeah, I was just curious to know, because you did mention that I had to seek legal advice. Do you have any resources in terms of well, not only the legal advice, but like where to start with like the editing and publishing? I'm a trained designer, so I'm confident that I could do the book cover, but the editing, the formatting, and the legal, if you have any resources for that, that would be great.
Sure. Okay, I've got so many resources. You've come to the right place. Actually, I'm going to put a link in the chat box. Let's see, book resources. There is a publisher in, I think she's in Arizona now, Flint Hills Publishing. And her name is Thea Rademacher. She's an attorney, and she has written a book, as it happens. And it's a free book. So I'm just going to put that book link in the chat box as soon as I find it. Yes, here it is. And you're all welcome to download that book. I get nothing out of that. Thea will ask you for your email address. It's her lead magnet, but there's a lot of fabulous information in there. And I highly recommend you approach Thea, as she is an attorney, and ask her any of your legal questions and publishing questions as well. I think she's a hybrid publisher. And I'm an editor, so yeah, give me a call sometime and we can talk about editing. And other than that, I do edit to the Chicago Manual of Style. Even though I'm Canadian, I think the Chicago Manual of Style is the gold standard for editing conventions. But there's also an organization, if you're in the United States, called the Editorial Freelancers Association. And they have a list of editors. You can do a search for editors by keyword. So I'm putting that link in there. If you prefer to work with a Canadian editor, there is Editors Canada, and I'll put that link in there. If you are in the UK, there is the Chartered Institute of Editors and Proofreaders, I think it is. And I don't know if we have any British people here. There's a body in Australia as well. So in pretty much every English-speaking country, there is an organization of editors dedicated to editors where you can do a search. So for example, if someone's writing a book that's specifically about computer technology, I'm not your gal. Like I would be a very bad editor if that's the purpose of the book, was to explain computer technology to people. However, there are editors out there who just love that stuff, who have a strong background in computer technology. You can do a search on any one of these directories and find the person who's the right fit for you. I happen to work in the personal transformational field. Those are the books that I edit. And I do business as well, but really the ones where I'm tailor-made to edit are really the ones that move the needle forward on humanity and how we can live better lives. So hopefully that's helpful. Does that answer some of the questions, Alexander?
Yes, yes, thank
Good.
you. Thank you. I'll probably be reaching out to you personally for like editing stuff. So
let's have a chat. I'm happy to. I have so many resources. I've run I've run 7 summits now. It's called the Conscious Leaders Book Writing Summit. I've done 7 of them now, and where I have 23 other experts in book writing, inner work, book writing, book publishing, and book marketing. And I've had 23 times 7 speakers, so 140 speakers. So I've used that event to build my database of people I can refer people to who are people of integrity and people who know what they're doing. And unfortunately, in the publishing world, there are a lot of predators, and especially the publishers. There are some awful publishers there who recognize that people only buy publishing services once, twice, 3 times, and most people are not well informed about what questions to ask to make sure they get their money's worth on the publishing side. They get a quality publishing job. So please lean on me. I'm happy to introduce anybody to people of quality who can help you out. Hey, Katerina, thank you for your patience. Oh, sorry,
Thank you.
Alexander, did you have more?
No, I was just saying,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your presentation. I think the 2 things that really stood out for me was scheduling time to like just avoid that blue sky moment, and also set a deadline. I think it's really important to set a hard deadline to like finish the book, because like if you just keep writing, you'll be writing forever. So I think thank you very much for those 2 points.
Well, you're welcome. I appreciate that comment. Thank you. Hey, Katerina, I'd love to hear what your comment is. You've been very patient.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Thank you so much for your
Great, thank you.
presentation.
Thank
you for the work you do. I'm not sure about the genre that you are writing in, but me, I want to write a memoir, and I am challenged right now choosing the right period of my life. So your example of a diary really resonated with me. So to me, it seems that everything is of relevance and everything is interesting, but I'm sure it's not the case for the memoirs. So I have to build a structure, right?
Yes.
I have to choose that period of my life. So do you have any recommendation, any like, I don't know, questions that I can ask myself in order to make that choice?
Definitely. I love this question. And bravo you for recognizing it's a period of your life for a memoir. A lot of people think of your whole life is your memoir, like it's about your whole life. And that's an autobiography. A memoir is a discrete segment of your life. And what I would recommend you do is ask yourself, and this may be a brainstorming exercise, but what are the main themes of your life? So for a lot of my clients, it's their spiritual evolution. And so I would look at when, that may not be the truth for you, but for something like that, I would look at kind of how spirituality has shown up in your life. At what point did that start to become relevant? And go from there, probably to today. Or it may be parenting. At what point did parenting become a relevant issue? And I don't know what that is for you, but you want to refine the memoir to a topic area, a theme in your life. If you think of your life as having had lots of themes, so one of the themes in my life has been betrayal. I've had so much betrayal. And so if I were writing a memoir right now, I would look at, okay, when was really that first period of betrayal in my life, and what did it teach me? Like, what's the learning that I carried forward from that? And when was the next betrayal? And when was the next betrayal? And kind of package the story around this theme. And actually, I am writing a kind of a memoir right now. One of the books that I'm working on right now is a book about how to write a book. And I'm using my experience of writing my first book as the memoir aspect of the book, and that's 13 years. So, the theme of that is of the memoir is writing a book. So I'm containing it within that 13-year period of starting to write a book to finishing the book. And it has created a nice capsule for me to kind of contain the story within a time period. And that's working for me. But also, I'm also using that as a vehicle for sharing a lot of what I know about book structure and what's an editor do, and storytelling. How do you tell a story? And so I'm able to weave through that a lot of practical information, even though it's kind of a memoir. Does that help, Katerina?
Yeah. The only question I have, you said choose like the themes of your life and then take a notice of when it became relevant. So does that mean that certain situations started to occur, or it's like when you started to notice? Because I feel like everything is connected, but that's that's a bit of
it is. I agree.
But like how do you really extract that the gist, you know what I mean?
I would say when you first noticed, because that's about your
Mhm.
waking up to it, you becoming aware of it. And there's probably a lot more. I mean, we can't really get into a lot of detail here because it really is quite a fascinating process of really narrowing it down. But brainstorm it. Just do some writing. Spend some blue sky time, figuring out what are the themes of my life? What am I here to experience? Becky, I know we're out of time. And I'm sorry, Larry Ann, that we're kind of at the end of our time together, and I don't
Susan, thank you
wanna...
so much. We hope to
You're
hear
so
more.
welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let me hop on here. Thank you, Susan. That was an amazing training and very valuable. And I know that there's so many more questions. I'm sure people have questions too. If you have a way for people to connect with you, that would be awesome if you could put it in chat. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. And of course, the valuable information, you're just going to gain so much more by signing up for Susan's event. So highly recommend doing that. Remember to use the discount code. Let me make sure we can grab that again for everybody.
Yeah, and I can I put my scheduling link, Becky? Would that be okay as well?
Yeah.
Because that might be easier for people if they want to just grab some time with me. Let's see.
And I put the event in there. The early bird special is the code that you're going to want to use.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And here's my scheduling link there. So yeah, book some time with me. I might be a little bit squeaky on time right now because we have our event coming up in a couple of weeks, but the summer opens up a lot after that if you can't find time. And I do make time available on weekends as well. So I would love to answer your questions. And thank you so much, Becky, for the chance to be with this wonderful group. I've really appreciated being here.
Of course. And thank you for joining us. And thank you everybody for taking your time to be with us today and going over a few minutes. We really appreciate your time and your schedule. So we encourage you to come back. We continue to have these types of valuable calls every week on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to have you back. EINtalks.com is a great website to go to for us to see the consistent activity of events that we have coming up. We look forward to seeing everybody soon. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. Bye.